Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another amazing episode of the Stephen Gervais and Friends podcast, brought to you by Zencastr.com, where, if you'd like to, you could get your very own Zencastr podcast on there. Hey, everyone. I would like to take a brief moment here and tell you about how Zencastr has changed my life. I have had my podcast for 4 years now, and I've enjoyed creating content for you in those years. I struggled to make my podcast more visible until someone introduced me to Zencastr.com. Let me tell you, moving over to Zencastr is the best decision I've ever made. Let me tell you why. It is so easy to record a podcast with Zencastr. All you have to do is log in using your browser and start recording a high-quality podcast right away. Record studio quality sound and up to 4K video with your guests. Feel a sense of zen, knowing Zencastr's multi-layered backups ensure you always have your recordings in the highest quality ever, even if the connection is unstable. As I told you earlier, I had issues getting my podcast out there. Gone are those days. If you have thought about podcasting before and realize that you need a lot of different tools and services, those days are over as well. With Zencastr's all-in-one podcasting platform, you can create your podcast all in one place and distribute to Spotify, Apple, and other major destinations. I personally have seen a boost in my own podcast once I switched to Zencastr. So what are you waiting for? Get your podcast started now. Go to zencastr.com/pricing and use my code Steven, and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. I want you to have the same easy experiences I do for all my podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story. And that was an ad by Zencastr. Hopefully I did it good this time. I'm sorry if I didn't. I kind of had to read from a script because if I tried it any other way, I'd mess up. But anyway, today we're talking about the 1986 thriller Manhunter. Manhunter is a 1986 American thriller film directed and written by Michael Mann. Based on the 1981 novel Red Dragon by Thomas Harris, it stars William Petersen as FBI profiler Will Graham. Also featured are Tom Noonan as serial killer Francis Dollarhyde, Dennis Farina as Graham's FBI superior Jack Crawford, and Brian Cox as incarcerated killer Hannibal Lecktor. The film focuses on Graham coming out of retirement to lend his talents to an investigation on Dollarhyde, a killer known as the Tooth Fairy. In doing so, he must confront the demons of his past and meet with Lecktor, who nearly killed Graham. Manhunter focuses on the forensic work carried out by the FBI to track down killers and shows the long-term effects that cases like this have on profilers such as Graham. Highlighting the similarities between him and his quarry, the film features heavily stylized use of color to convey this sense of duality, and the nature of the characters' similarity has been explored in academic readings of the film. It was the first film adaptation of Harris's Hannibal Lecktor novels, as well as the first adaptation of Red Dragon, which would later become the basis for a film of the same name in 2002. Opening to mixed reviews, Manhunter fared poorly at the box office at the time of its release, making only $8.6 million in the United States. However, it has been reassessed in more recent reviews and now enjoys a more favorable reception, as both the acting and the stylized visuals have been appreciated better in later years. Its resurgent popularity, which may be due to later adaptations of Harris's books and Petersen's success in CSI or Crime Scene Investigation TV series, has since seen it labeled as a cult film. So what Manhunter is about is pretty much Will Graham being asked to come back, and after he was attacked by Hannibal Lecktor, he had suffered a mental breakdown, so he retires, and Jack Crawford, who was his superior, comes back and says, hey, you know, I got this file. This person we're trying to locate is killing families. Could you help us? And that's where Francis Dollarhyde, the serial killer known as the Tooth Fairy, comes in. This movie didn't do very well when it hit theaters. The budget was $14 to $15 million, and it only recuperated 4 to 8.6 million here in North America in the box office. So it was seen as a failure, but yet it has become a cult classic today. And that being said, I really do think this movie was really great for its time. The killer played by the legendary Tom Noonan, who would play Kane in RoboCop, and he was in a lot of other stuff too. Same with William Petersen, who plays Will Graham. The first time someone played Will Graham in a movie. The story is very good. The lead up to the ending is very great. The climax part of it is one of the best. I mean, how many people do you know that are FBI criminal profilers would jump through a window, get caught by the killer, slashed, thrown into a refrigerator, and then come back to kill the killer at the end? The one thing I have to say about this movie that I didn't like was sometimes the pacing would be kind of maybe too fast, too slow. And when they do go in between Will Graham trying to figure out how to get that connection back with serial killers again, I wish that, you know, it would have shown more of a psyche it took on him, rather than just in the beginning of the movie you hear, you know, that he was retired and had a mental breakdown because he was attacked by Hannibal Lecktor, which Hannibal Lecktor is played by Brian Cox in this movie, and he is amazing. I know Anthony Hopkins gets like the most credit as being a great Hannibal Lecktor. Brian Cox does amazing. And so what this movie tries to do is say, hey, you know, a lot of these FBI guys that do look for these killers and all that, they get emotional and mental scars, as well as physical ones, let's be honest. And that Will Graham is brought back because he wants to help, but ultimately he doesn't want to endanger his family or have a mental breakdown again or fall into the trap of becoming a killer. So Will does come aboard. He helps out a little bit. He goes to these houses where the Tooth Fairy has attacked and killed these families, and he tries to replay it in his mind to get that connection of who this guy, who the killer is. And at first it doesn't work, but later on he starts to figure it out. He meets with Lecktor, and Lecktor says, hey, you know, you've had those dreams that I've had. We're the same in a way. And he ends up leaving. Will Graham ends up leaving. He kind of has like a anxiety attack when he first talks with Lecktor. And Lecktor is smart. He tracks down Will Graham's family, where his location is, where they live actually, and sends it to the Tooth Fairy anonymously through a code. Well, Graham, sensing this, has his family move to a safe area so that Dollarhyde won't find them and hurt them or anything like that. So later on, once they decide that, you know, hey, we found this thing that Lecktor and the Tooth Fairy are having correspondence, They try to bring the Tooth Fairy to Will Graham. Well, the sting operation is a failure, and Lowndes, who is kind of a piece of crap in this, Freddie Lowndes is his name. You don't see it in the movie, but Will Graham doesn't like him because he snuck into Will Graham's hospital room, and took all these pictures of him while he was out and hurting and trying to recuperate. So Lowndes is kidnapped by the Tooth Fairy and is forced to tape record a statement before being set on fire in a wheelchair, as a warning. And he later meets with his son Kevin and explains to his son that, hey, this is what happened. This is why I retired previously. This is why I didn't want to come back. And that I was very sick. And Francis Dollarhyde, later on, he meets a blind coworker by the name of Reba McLean and offers her a ride home, which is funny because once Reba and Dollarhyde get to his home, she's blind, so she doesn't see that he's watching home movie footage of his next victims. And him and Francis Dollarhyde and Reba later have sex. And so the next night, Graham finally figures out that the Tooth Fairy's murders are driven by a desire for acceptance, that he needs to be accepted by everyone. And Dollarhyde later goes off the deep end when he sees Reba escorted by another man, and he murders that man and abducts Reba. So Graham, he realizing that, the killer has seen their own movies, he bought bolt cutters to a home with a padlock and a home video. And they later identified the lab in St. Louis where the films are processed. After determining which employees have seen these films, he and Crawford travel with the police escort to Dollarhyde's home. Inside, Dollarhyde prepares to kill Reba with a piece of glass. Seeing that Dollarhyde has someone with him, Graham lunges through a window and is later subdued by Dollarhyde, who retrieves a shotgun and shoots 2 police officers and injures Crawford. Wounded in the firefight, Dollarhyde returns to the kitchen where he's killed by Will Graham. Graham, Reba, and Crawford are attended to by paramedics, and Graham returns home to his family. And what is cool about this is that the movie where we see Dollarhyde beat up on Graham and start a firefight with the police officers is the song Inagata Davida by, I think it was Iron Butterfly that sang it. So that song's playing while he's going on an absolute rampage against the police and all that. And when finally he goes back into the kitchen, Graham shoots him and kills him. And then Graham saves Reba. Crawford's shown alive but wounded. And Graham finally returns home to his family. And that's pretty much it. This movie is very, very... If I was to rate this movie, I'd give it a 7 out of 10. I mean, there's parts where it's kind of stupid and slow, and there's parts where it's fast and you get inconclusive information. But at the same time, the movie does tend to help you and guide you along on what's going on. Yeah, but that is pretty much the movie. It was originally going to be called Red Dragon, but Dino De Laurentiis made the change to Manhunter. So, yeah, that's pretty much it with this review of Manhunter. You can check this out on YouTube or anywhere where you watch podcasts. Go check out the Nonsensical Nonsense podcast, which is hosted by a man by the name of Glick, who kind of showed me about Zencastr. Also, go check out Talking Shit with Brian and Brian and Mark. Go check out Flet's Films and Pop Culture 13, or Movies and Pop Culture 13 with Kyle Curtis Flet. Go check out Peter Anthony's Productions. Go check out The Night Watch Zone with Night Taylor. He's on YouTube. A lot of these links will be down in the description. Also, I will be doing Patreon, so that when I do sorry about this, I'm trying to figure out how to word this. I will be starting a Patreon for special episodes that you, the fans, would be able to pay for. The Patreon would be really simple. The first tier would be $1, and that would mean that you'd get a shout out, or I'd have to figure out how to do where I could put the credits and all that with different people's names on there. The second tier would be $3, and that would be, you'd get tier 1, and also you would get to recommend a movie. You'd be entered in a drawing at the end of a month and get to recommend a movie. And tier 3, which would be $5, you would get everything from tier 1 and tier 2. But with tier 3, you would also get the opportunity to be entered into a drawing to come on the show, and we get to either do a watch along of a film, or we can talk about a film that the person that would win that would request. So that's all for today. Thank you so very much. Go check out Zencastr. Go check out the YouTube channel. If you haven't yet, please subscribe, comment, hit the notification bell on the YouTube channel. It helps us out very much, and it helps us grow, and I appreciate it so very much. Thank you all for being a great bunch of listeners, and I will see you all next time.